Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 233B of Tales with TR. Let's get right into it. My guest today is two Memorial Cups, two Stanley Cups, is a good friend. We go way back to the Rocky Mountain Junior Hockey League days, RMJHL. Yes, you heard me correctly. The league is now defunct, but I was with the Quesnel Millionaires. He was with the Cranbrook Colts. Remains in contact, remains a good friend, and had an unbelievable hockey career from a great hockey family. Brad, the man Lukowich. Bradley, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
How the hell are you doing, and what are you up to these days?
I'm doing good, man. I'm coaching down here in Dallas, the Texas Tigers 14U AA team. Love the organization. It's my second year with the Tigers organization, having a blast. And then I just do my alumni stuff, man. I'm trying to get some different events down here and help out our guys that are still in the area.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about that at some point, but we just did a 5-city Shoresy tour. I believe, we were kind of joking about that in the summer. I don't think any of us thought it had actually come to fruition. But Kara Haflitzson of Bell Media and company, but her and Jared Kiso basically led the charge, who plays Shoresy.
Yeah.
And we really didn't know, and it went really well. So I'm pretty sure. I don't want to speak for other people, but I mean, it was an overwhelming success. We sold all the merch, we sold all the seats. So I'm guessing, and according to plan, I don't know exactly when, but we are going to come down your way. So hopefully we can put something together.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, I love what you guys are doing up there and seeing all the butts and seats, man. Like we have games down here. There it is. Yeah,
I saw a couple of your posts. You got the rare blue Bulldog hat.
Oh, there it is. There it is. That's one of my favorite teams. You guys got a good squad. It's a great team.
It's so much fun. It's great that we all play hockey because we can go out and play, actual. I think a lot of people are kind of overwhelmed. We get there and they're like, hey, I didn't know you got now. Of course, we're playing against legends of the game, but we can hang, we can hang.
Yeah.
Listen, speaking of, I mean, you're right in Dallas. I'm not going to go. It's for those that don't know, I had Brad on before and we had, I forget which episode, but we went through your career chronologically. But I mean, I talked about the cups. There's a lot to get in with you. I really didn't realize, though, like you get to Dallas immediately and you guys won. So you're walking into a room with like Brett Hull. I forgot Neuendijk, Mike Keane. I played with Keane, or I still go to his golf tournament or his hockey tournament in the spring, raising money in Winnipeg for kids that need equipment. Guy Carbonneau, I forgot he was still there. Medano, Lettinen, like that must have been a bit exciting and maybe overwhelming for a kid your age to just walk into a team like that.
Bro, it was like walking into Harry Potter, like seriously, you walk in the dressing room and in your mind, you're like, this is kind of like my room when I was a kid. I had that poster of that guy on the wall, a poster of that, but now they're all moving and talking to you and you got to perform too. So it was pretty wild. Like I still to this day, you're like, man, like those are all because we were young when we came in. It was an older team. Like all those guys were
older leagues.
Yeah, but they were all captains of some other team, and they were the guys that had a special hockey card. Like Guy Carbonneau had that special hockey card. Craig Ludwig, the legend of the shin pads. So you walk in the room, Eddie Belfour, just don't talk to Eddie. So because he's so focused on his gear, all of those things, and you sit there and you're just looking around, and you're like, this is unbelievable. And it really, to this day, I still look back at it and like, man, that team was something else.
A bunch of leaders. Like I met Keane in Montreal. It's funny because he was the captain when I first went there. And he basically got run out of town because he said, we don't need to know French. He didn't mean that I'm not going to try to learn it. He just meant like they asked him a question. And I know what he meant. He said, in the room, don't worry. There's no lack of communication. We all speak English. We're fine with that. He wasn't saying I hate French. He was, he got run out of town. He's got a cup with 3 different teams. It's one thing to have 3 cups and get in on a run, but 3 different. So by the time he got to Dallas, would have been close to the end of his NHL career. He ended up playing a bunch more in the A, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. But like, you're talking about a depth guy with 3 cups. Like everybody on that team was a leader, and you're coming from junior where you had a bunch of leaders and, possibly the greatest team ever, but still it must have been overwhelming. So when you got there, did any of those players take you under their wing? I mean, being that you were so young and inexperienced?
All of them did. It was the
Wow.
coolest thing ever, man. It really was. It was the first couple of days I stayed at the Harvey Hotel. That was the hotel. It was the Harvey Hotel out by the airport. There was nothing out there. And after maybe 4 or 5 days of practice, a couple of games here and there, going right home after, I think it was after the first week. It was a Monday night. I got the call. Hey man, we're going to come pick you up and we're going to go out for dinner. All the boys get together on Monday nights. We're going to go to the Big Apple. The Big Apple had a dancing competition that night that we would all go to. So we went to Monday night. We all go out and we're having a good time. But as I'm coming, so get dressed, look good. I come down the stairs. They're all there. I'm like, okay, this is one of those passing of the torch things here. This is pretty cool. So I come in, Hatch and Maddie are like, you coming with us? Jump in the back. He had a Jaguar. So I'm sitting in that little back seat of a Jaguar, sideways, like looking through the back window. Can't really look out the front window. I have no idea where we're going. We're going 100 miles an hour through the airport because there's that used to be a shortcut going through the airport. Okay. So we cruised over to the Big Apple. We walk in, Vinnie Paul, Dimebag Darrell. I'm like, where am I? Like,
Really?
I was like in Disneyland. I'm like, what is going on here? The whole team's there. Mo's just sitting in the corner, leaning up on the wall, drinking a beer. I'm like, what is going on? And it was just this hangout place of all these guys were just hanging out, good buddies. Next day at practice, so they got me pretty lit up. Next morning at practice, they're like, hide in line, bro. Just hide in line. Get behind us. Do one and then just stay in line. Like they took care of me after the game. Wow. I'm like, I got to go home to bed. They're like, what do you do? What do you mean? No. We got to go to lunch. The whole team. So the whole team, we went over to Cowboys Cafe, sat down, and I remember walking in, and I was like the last guy there, and I sat down right beside Guy Carbonneau, who was watching Days of Our Lives. And I walk in there and like, what do you have? And I'm like, man, it's 12:30. Coke, and everybody was there, and they went dead quiet. And they all turned around, they looked at me, and they go, we don't trust anyone that doesn't have a beer with the boys.
Wow.
I'll have what he's having.
Fucking
Grabbed
deadly.
a beer, had a beer with the boys, watched Days of Our Lives with Guy Carbonneau. That was my first day, 24 hours in the NHL, and it was like that from then on. It was hanging out with the boys. We were just so tight as a group. It didn't matter that Carbo was 40 and I was 21. It was like we'd play together forever, and that's why that team was so successful. It really, and that was what for the rest of my career. Any team I played on, that's what I wanted to do in the dressing room, is try to create that atmosphere and that culture in the dressing room of just the guys first, the players first. If you do that, then the wins will come. That kind of culture and atmosphere. And I learned that from the guys like Mike Keane. A lot of the Montreal guys, really, it comes down to the Montreal guys, the Ludwigs, the Carbonneaus, the Keens, Bob Gainey. Like that was, if anyone wants to know where the big transfer of torch was, it's not Minnesota North Stars coming down to the Dallas Stars. It's the Montreal Canadiens impression on the Dallas Stars group that was here. That's why we won the cup.
I always wondered that because, I'm still friends with a lot of those guys. I spoke at Chris Nyland's golf tournament this summer. And it's just in Montreal, there's, especially back then, there's just a feeling of leadership. I remember Jean Beliveau coming in. I've talked about this before. I'm just a different person, but his level of professionalism, I took something with me from that. Just this guy that was he just commanded this presence, and then everybody else, I don't want to say under him, but just the swagger that he held and the status and much. But then Guy Lafleur come in, and like I said, guys that were still playing, like Patrick Waugh was there. Mike Keane, I can't reiterate enough. Mark Lamb was there. Mark Lamb had 4 cups with the Oilers in the 80s, was a depth piece, but that's why they got him in. So even when the Habs weren't winning, I was always like, man, do they ever get people that are good, hard, Tucks, and there was a changing of the guard.
Yeah.
first when they wanted him there. Turner Stevenson ended up winning, and Turner was, a good player. I won't say great NHLer, but he was a great teammate. And those things, the apple doesn't usually fall far from the tree. So right now, just to get back to it, because a lot of people know those stories to some degree, but you're coaching. So how did you get into coaching under 14? And I get the Dallas part, but how did you get into that?
Really, I started coaching when I was playing still. When I was in Austin, they kind of gave me a little bit of a role as a kind of a coach, kind of a Shoresy role, really, to be honest with you. It was more of
Yeah.
like a player coach. They gave me about 4 or 5 guys. Excuse me. So I had like Luke Gazdick, Colton Sevier was a guy, Phil Larson, Matt Frazier, Luke Gaz, like those, that was kind of the group of 5 that really were the top guys. And what they were asking me to was like, teach these guys how to be a professional.
Yeah.
Well, then you kind of like in your own mind, you're like, well, I haven't been the greatest professional my whole career. I still like to have fun with the boys, still like to go out. But it was that moment that I was like, you know what, this is my time to turn around and be that guy. So I got to do that in Austin, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I love coaching because as a teammate, I didn't play a ton. I was a glue guy in the room. I played those 8 to 14-minute games. A lot of my stuff was done off the ice and in practice, and the step up when I had to when a guy was injured. So really for me, it was bring that culture into the 14U groups and to start pushing onto them versus, it's always nice to make the jump from a player right into coaching and get behind the bench. Some guys are very professional and are very good at it. I don't think I would have been that good at it. I needed to go down. I went all the way down to the 8U, 10U. I've been to 12U. I've done 16U, 18U, Little Western Hockey League. I like the 14U age. That's kind of where they're deciding whether they really want to be a player or not. So that's really the mantra and culture that I'm bringing into these guys. Listen, you're good either way. With me, you're good either way. If you want to be a hockey player, there's a role and a route and a path for you to go that way. And it's tough, but it's really tough. Like, I know it. It is tough. It's even when you think you've gone hard enough, you turn the corner and there's a whole 3 miles ahead of you. You're like, wow, that was just one little test. Where there's also room for guys that want to play hockey, like just want to be a hockey player. Just go up. There's hockey players and there's guys that want to play hockey. There's room for both of them. As long as you come in, you respect one another, give it your all. It's that effort first type mentality that I like to have with my guys. Listen to the game plan, stick to the game plan. If we can do that, we will be successful. I really don't care about the wins and losses. It's about how you prepare for the game, you execute your game, and how you respect the game and each other in the game. That's kind of the culture that I'm trying to build down here. And we're not a AAA team. We're not in that. I treat them like they're AAA. They deserve that. So that's really where my mentality is try to develop these guys on and off the ice, the best skill on the ice that I possibly can, but really off the ice to give them the love of the game, whether it be the commitment side and competitive side, or just the love of the game. And I like to play the game and enjoy it every time they come to the rink.
Dallas minor hockey, has that it must have evolved, did it a lot? Because I go down south, man. I didn't and by the way, we will talk, but when I said I'd love to go there with Shoresy and play the Stars alumni, hopefully that happens, but I am also going to Austin. I'm going to Austin separately. I've got friends there. I've always wanted to go, so we'll talk about that too. But off air, just in case I forget. But I when I'm down in Texas, I always get overwhelmed at how many huge hockey fans, just the South in general. But I read something somewhere like a decade ago or so now, but it still must hold true to some degree, that there was the most pro hockey teams in Texas of any state or province or anywhere in the world that signifies outside of a country. So is minor hockey in Dallas, and I know a lot of people are starting to come in, and not starting, but there's more and more players from down south trickling into the draft ranks. Has it noticeably improved since you've been there, and how much of that improvement would get credited to the ex-stars that are there. Like I know in Phoenix, right, a lot of the ex-players run minor hockey, and now it's gone through the roof. How about
Right.
Dallas?
Dallas itself has one AAA team. It's actually Texas only has one AAA team, which is that's kind of where the situation is. But
Okay.
the grassroots campaign is phenomenal. It's through the roof. It's hockey is for everyone. They've done a really good job of that. They do a great job with the learn to play.
Oh, good.
A lot of the alumni members, myself, Terry Ruskowski, Steve Harrison, Bob Basson, Yoni Latola, like a lot of that's those guys that have been out there and really grown the game all over. They call themselves the extreme team. They've been going all over the state. They to do little clinics on the weekends. That was the grassroots campaign. Well, that has now grown up into these travel teams are all over the place with the emergence of hockey academies in the north. It's just given so many different avenues for youth to do something. To be honest, to do something, get out of the heat. What better place to go into a rink? So you have that all year round down here. The Stars facilities are second to none. They put a lot of money and time and effort into their facilities. So they're really nice for the people that come in. You can, even if you're not playing, if they got warm viewing areas upstairs and all that jazz, they have tons of camps. They've done a good job at that level. And it's really, like you mentioned, the guys that have come in here. COVID did that to us. We had New York people, Massachusetts, California, all these people that moved down into Texas. Well, they're all northern. They're those guys that played hockey. So our AA level and AAA kids it grew really big, almost and maybe a little bit too fast. We don't have enough teams for those kids. So we are losing some kids to the hockey academies, to the AAA levels, because there's really a cap. There's 20 kids that can make that Stars team. It's grown. It's an awesome position. If I'm a Dallas Stars, if I'm at the top right now, I'd be very proud of myself because you've really put the lid on it, but now you're bursting at the seams. So now it comes down to how do we navigate moving forward? Is it an opportunity to grow another AAA team in the South? You put another one in the Metroplex. How does that go? Well, that can only be done by hard work and putting everybody together and doing it right. So in my books, you got to give them a thumbs up. Continue growing the game, and let's get some more of these groups here, because the more the higher level AAA guys that's what's going to get the coaching, the guys like myself that want to get into, like, I want to be a coach. I love this. This is fantastic. The AAA team here, those guys have been coaching here for 20 years, so their jobs are quite secured. So for a guy like myself that wants to go to the next level and get to that AAA level, be nice to have another squad here in town. If it doesn't happen, just like the old days, keep your nose to the grindstone and keep working and try to get noticed, right?
The powers that be, the hockey people in Texas, made sure to have a lot of people that play hockey, as you said. Let's get grassroots. Let's get people playing hockey.
Yep.
It's a great pastime. Now, from there, when we get enough drummed up, now there'll be hockey players come from that. No, that's really interesting. And I just, I visit the southern states. I absolutely love it. I just, whenever I visit, I don't have hockey first on the menu. It's just nice to get down there from Canada. So I'm really unaware of most happenings. So that really explains a lot. Why number 37 when you got to the show? For the most part, I see you wore different numbers, but that question actually comes from Carl in Kamloops. I announced you were coming on, and he sent the message. Oh, no. I think in Kamloops, what did you wear? 24? Am I wrong?
I was 24. Yeah. And even 24, I didn't mean to wear 24. I wanted 25, but Bob Westerby was 25, and he was way tougher than me.
Yeah.
And then I wanted 23, and that was Chris Murray, and he was tougher than Bob Westerby.
Oh, yeah. I played with Murray for a bit. Yeah.
Right? Crazy Murray. So I'm like,
man. Hey, by the way, just so everybody, we're not going to get back to it. Watch Chris Murray, Steve McLaren, YouTube, Memorial Cup, 93, 94. One of the best ever. And made me so proud to be a Western Leaguer when I was back in Newfoundland, and we were all watching that. Sorry, go ahead.
You just gave me goosebumps, bro. I agree with you. That is one of the best fights, and to see it live, it's still in my. Everyone always asks, "What's the best fight you ever seen?" Chris Murray, McLaren, Mohawk, jerseys off, hated each other. Memorial Cup
before social media, where you knew if you want to see the best, you got to wait till spring. And you got to watch that TV, and they're going to come on. There's no way to accelerate this. There's no way to check it on Facebook. Let's just watch. And they delivered.
It was great.
It was great. Back when you
Yeah.
could look right now, I'm not pro or con or anything. I'm just saying back when you could look forward to a junior
Oh
fight.
yeah.
Get in the
Oh
back,
yeah.
driving around on the bus. How many hockey newses were on the back, and you just
Oh
open it up and remember everybody's
yeah.
stats.
Oh yeah. Looking right at penalty minutes first.
I know.
Where
Yeah.
is he? Where's their tough guy?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Then, and honestly, I really didn't pick 37. 37 kind of picked me. I went to the Islanders camp. I was drafted by the Islanders in 94. I went there, and well, the first year we had the lockout, so we didn't have a camp that year. And then the next year, 95, I went to, it was in Kitchener. And then Kitchener, I wore 37. I didn't sign with them. I had a good year that year and kind of had a little issue with the Islanders there where I was going to go back in the draft. And at the last minute, they traded me to Dallas. And when I showed up in Dallas, 37, that was it.
that's how.
Yeah. And then they asked me about a couple numbers. I think it was like my dad wore 18 and Lawler had just left. And I was like, well, I don't want to have my dad's number. And then 12, Keener, guys like that. I'm like, I don't know if 12's my cousin Morris, 12. So I'm like, well, that's not really a defenseman number. The low numbers were all kind of taken already because Dallas, Broughton, and Moe and all those guys are the past Hatch. So 37, it was your rookie number. All right, I'll take it. I'm like, I'm not picky. I'll just take it.
It's funny. Now people would ask me in Montreal, and not funny. There's another thing after this, but I wore 14. Montreal let me wear that. It's a low number, and I'm really. But remember, Todd Clausen had passed away, played in Tri-City.
That's right.
He wore number 14, and I started myself and Dean Tilchin started a scholarship fund for him. And that again, that's how professional the Habs are, because it was Mario Tremblay's number, and he ended up the year I made it when I was 19. He was the coach, and I'm walking around wearing his number. He's got like multiple cups. That was just one meeting went in. And he goes, well, you know, I think you should have a low number anyway. But he goes, you're wearing mine. I said, look, this is what happened to my good friend, and you know, I really looked up to him. You guys, you know, he was the captain of Tri-Cities, just like the captains here. He goes, go no further. I didn't even have to explain it. So that's it. You're number 14. It's great.
That's cool.
Speaking of, you know, you talk about looking at guys' penalty minutes. I just looked. First of all, before I explain the penalty minutes in the Western League, at some point in the early 90s, it was decided that there were so many fights. For those listening, I don't often tell this story enough because it is quite mesmerizing if you really think about it. The Western League were the only league. First of all, we had to warm up on our own, okay? On our own. If we went
full ice,
my career in the Western League was full ice. I don't know when they stopped doing that or when they began, but I know that I went in full ice. So we go into Kamloops, we'd go out there at the game 7:05. We go out at 6:15. Then we have a full ice. We're doing 3-on-2, neutral zone, regroup. We're doing sometimes power play. Right, you didn't want to give all your cards away because the other guys are watching. But if we needed to work on it, we would work on stuff, and then the ice would get done completely. The other team would come on, and then the ice would get done completely again, and then we would play. And not only that, Brad, in the Western League, they didn't count 10-minute misconducts because guys were starting to be orangutans and go for like 600 and 700 penalty minutes. Can you remember that chaos? We don't talk about it enough, but that happened in the Western League. Like, we were programmed to just go out there and beat the shit out of each other. Yeah.
Well, the year before, so when I was 16 and you would have been 15, you were in the queue, or you were Quinnell Millionaires.
Quinnell, yeah.
How many penalty minutes did you have that year? Because you had like 100 some points.
In Quinnell, I led the team in scoring 60. In my 14-year-old year,
right,
I had 67 points, 220 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, the next year, as a 15-year-old, I had 85 points, like another 200 minutes. You had the same. You had a lot of points down in Cranbrook. And a lot of penalty minutes.
I had 70. It was 70 points or something like that, or 65 points. But they count. That's where I was going with it. Is they counted the tens.
Yeah.
In that league, so I had 450 penalty minutes that year because I would. At the end of every game, you know, Cranbrook. I remember Rocky Hockey. They'd ring that bell with the last 10-minute mark of the third period. They just ding, ding, ding. And then the guys on like Creston, those guys on the other team, they just point at you like, I'm fighting you. Like, oh, here we go. And you go out and my dad was the assistant coach. Colin Patterson was the head coach. Their rule was as long as we had a 2-goal lead, then you can drop the mitts. It's like, all right, well, so some of those games, guys would just grab me and beat the living crap out of me. I wasn't allowed to fight back. But some of those, like the old Van Horlick boys up north there and grab
Playing with
you and
me.
playing with you. We had line brawls. What's
Quentin
that?
said at the beginning of the year, dropping the puck, he said, I want to get 500 penalty minutes.
Yeah. He would warm up. He'd walk by and whack you. Like,
it was crazy. I try to tell people, like, we were high school, like grade 9 to 11. Like, I try to tell people, I'm like, I was 14, 15, you were 15 and 16. Like, we were going out there. There was guys with beards working in the mill that were like playing. Like, a lot of these locals, like, I know when people think major junior, but when you think major junior, like you said, everybody there wants to be a hockey player at some point. You're trying to. A lot of these guys are local. They're just playing hockey in Quesnel because they're big motherfuckers
living the dream
of the game that want to fight, right?
Yeah.
And that was every team in our league.
Yeah.
It's wild. And
we had married guys on our team, like guys that were engaged and like lived on their own. I'm like,
smoke breaks in between periods.
Hey, Dad, I'm going to Ian Benson's house. No, you're not. He's a 20-year-old. You're only 15. What are you going to his house?
Like, you had to navigate around all of that.
You know exactly why I'm going there.
Well, I mean, it's good. It's good. I look at it because
awesome.
I like to try. If I went to a team that was too square, I don't think that would have worked. But I needed leaders that like to have a bit of fun, but they needed to keep me in line at a young age. I don't know. I would have just followed anybody. Oh, hey, Vince, what's going? Like, I don't. I'm so glad that they had their head and wits about them because they always made sure. Okay, Terry is on a little bit. They appreciated that I was a prospect and they were proud that I was there. Sheldon Surrey was there with me, and they just always make sure that, okay, you're not going to be nerds and not come to the party. You're not getting shit-faced. Have a few beers with us and join in. To get back to the penalty minutes, so I often say, like, I felt almost cheated in my draft year. I said I had 207 minutes in the Western League in my draft year are a lot different than those minutes in Quesnel.
That's unreal.
I don't know how many fights I actually, but yeah, so like, and I used to go, Jesus, like, this is a stat that people are looking at. And I'm like, I came out to the Western League. I should my rights should have been in the O or Quebec now. They all are. But I'm like, there's people that do my job over there that, if penalty minutes are a thing, I would have had 380. And I think to go with 50 goals, that's a big thing. Now looking back, I'm like, it's kind of barbaric. But I'm looking at your team, not your team. In your first year pro, you played with a guy, Kevin fucking Sawyer. And so he was one of those guys. He played for Spokane for those. You watch, I think he does like the NHL on Fox or something now. Like, he's a very articulate, smart guy. One of these guys.
You would never think that, like, watches YouTube. You're like, that's not the same guy.
You wouldn't think.
Never.
He had 398 minutes. Like, I'm saying, go into Spoke back then or wherever. I can
terrifying.
All of the above. Terrifying. These 398.
Oh, and you played in Tri-Cities though, bro. Spokane and Tri. Like, you guys are brawling every game.
Every game, right?
Every game.
Hopefully, and they had Brant Myers for a bit, for the full part of my first year as a 16, and just go down the list. I mean, everybody, even guys, we ended up trading for him, like John Shockey, just an honest player.
Yeah,
drop his gloves, like guys. Lanks got to the NHL. He didn't do a lot of fighting. He'd stick up for himself. But in those years in the Western League, he'd get like 15 fights. I was trying to. There was a guy, Kerry Toporowski, right before us.
Yeah.
Okay? So the first year of that rule, he said, I'm going to break it anyway. And he had 515 penalty minutes with no tens included. Can you imagine that? What is that? 800, 900 penalty minutes? You know what I mean? He had 515. So all of those tens that he would have gotten for being second fight or being last 5 minutes, or like, the tens go along with all of that, and he's still had something penalty minutes, and that was the Western Hockey League. We weren't allowed to warm up together. Just too many bench brawls, and hearing that going in was like, what the fuck league am I going to?
Where am I going?
Now, not even to get off of it, we talked about leaders, and it's funny because you said, you were like, I talked about Mike Keane. So you were the Mike Keane for those players you're talking about. 2 Mem Cups, 2 Stanley Cups. Now you're the depth guy coming in. You become a coach, leader. But in Kamloops, we were always, we were like proud that we took you guys 6 games in the year that you fucking dusted everybody, 94, 95, which is kind of the year you were going for it, even though you won it in 93,
Yeah.
94. I remember everybody were gearing towards
Yeah.
94, 95. And we kept hearing that and hearing that. And we're pretty good. We were a bit younger. Like you
Yeah.
guys were younger the year before when you had to play
Yeah.
Portland and
Yeah.
Brandon, all those teams. And so I take pride in that because, you know, one game was overtime. And I just try to
Yeah.
tell people, I'm like, they were so deep. They were so good. Um, was that similar, like a team full of leaders, I assume, like in that dressing room? And if people need to be reminded, I'll start with Jerome McGinley, Shane Doan, Darcy Tucker, Nat Dominic Kelly, Nolan Baumgartner, guys that you don't even think of, like Jason fucking Holland, was like a second-round pick and played in the
Yeah.
NHL. Did you guys push each other? Was there one person like putting the clamp down?
Hazer was amazing. Like he was an incredible coach at that level. So a lot of credit would really go to him. Bob Brown, Stu McGregor, like the architects around the group, they were very big into making sure that the right guys were in the room. But like, forget about like Bonner. Like Bones was an incredible captain. You know, he was in the first run with
Yeah.
the Niedermeyer boys. And, you know, and then Scott Ferguson. You talk about the guys like that. Ryan Huska, Jarrett
Wow.
Dooling. You know, like so those are the type of guys. Yeah, we had our superstar guys, but the actual leaders are the Ryan Huskas, you know, like the
Yeah.
Jarrett Doolings or the Scott Ferguson guys, um, to try to mold the Jerome McGinley superstar to be instead of it being the individual player to the team player, which happened very quick.
Yeah.
And that was the reason our success was so incredible. You know, we were all the best players on our team that we played on last year. Now you're going to bring all these guys and you're going to put Darcy Tucker, Jerome McGinley, and Shane Doan on the same line. Well,
And
which one wants the puck most?
they
So they
fucking
started, yeah, they worked together. That to me is why that team was so successful. It was really the guys that we don't talk about anymore, but
and
that are now in coaches or scouts somewhere else.
they must have seen, like, you know, I talk about the Habs, and that's on a obviously world scale, but there must have been people like Darcy Tucker came from Endiang, Alberta, like this little tiny town, and he was a small-ish player that always, you know, played hard. But like they saw that, I'm guessing he didn't go like in the top 10 of the draft. He worked himself in. So like of the junior draft, I mean. So, or even if there was one at his
Tux's
age.
first time on the ice, I still have it ingrained in my mind because I went on the ice and I was like laughing at him. I'm like, who is that kid? His pants were like this big.
Yeah.
You could see like the bottom of his pants to his knee. You could see his leg. He had these brown gloves that were probably older than your dad's. His mask was like over here, like look at this kid, and he was running everybody. And then
he skates funny. Like he's not a bad.
Yeah, he's got like that weird. And
if you're just look, he skates funny, so he must have looked.
What is going on? And then, but every time he'd do something though, he'd turn around and he'd look right at Bob, he'd look right at Stu, and he'd look at Hazer. He'd stare right at them, and then he'd kind of turn around, and he'd target the next guy, and boom, he'd beeline it to the next guy and crack that guy, and then he'd grab the puck and go in and score, and he'd turn around, and he'd look right at them, and he'd celebrate staring at them. The next time the next practice was a couple hours later. I remember walking in the rink and them grabbed him. I'm like, oh, there's that kid, that wild guy. And they had all new gear for him.
Oh yeah.
And that was, they had new gloves for him. They had the helmet. They had everything for him. And Tux was so thankful at that moment. You should have seen his next time he went on the next time he's dropping his glove. He's grabbing. I'm like, dude, this guy made the team. He made the team in his second skate. That's how determined that guy was. Unbelievable. I love that guy, man.
I do that in Montreal. I lived with him for a little bit. I learned a lot, man. About like I was like, okay, what makes this guy tick? Holy fuck, he will not take no for an answer. He works so fucking hard, and it's so over the top that I thought it was put on until I met him. I thought
he's unreal.
Oh,
yeah, you think he's a Hollywood, but he's not. He is genuine. He's a loyal guy. He's from the heart. A lot of people, I think, look at him the wrong way because of what you just said.
Yeah,
he is a genuine, loyal. He'll do anything for you. Jump in front of a bullet if he had to. He's a reason why we won in 94, 95. And he's a 3-time Memorial Cup champ, bro. 3.
I know, like it's amazing. And for those of you that heard that story, that don't go back and look at the stats. Darcy Tucker ended up coming second in lead scoring 2 years in a row. And he was lucky, or we were lucky. The last game of his 19-year-old year is with the year Lanks won it. And again, no social media. So we're in the room. Luco, I've got 48 goals going into the last period of the season. Okay.
Wow.
Ray Schultz has no goals, and he played every game. So Bob says, I'm going to take the timeouts, guys. I'm going to change goalies. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And if you guys don't have a problem, I'm going to play Terry the whole fucking period if I have to. And he did. And I scored my I scored my 49th with about 9 minutes left, shorthanded. And then got my 50th with 28 seconds left in the season. And that was Lanks's 4th point of the period and 5th of the game. And then when we got in, we found out that Darcy had 8 points in his last game and nearly, whatever it was, he nearly beat Lanks. Like, it was, if Lanks didn't have that, we were thinking Lanks was so far ahead, being only like, I don't know, 8 or 9 points. But we thought it was a joke. Not a joke. It was done. So it's a good thing that Bob played me and Lanks had assists, and I could. Really
I'd like to watch that last game with us, Kamloops game, because I know he had 8 points on the score sheet.
Yeah,
but I always thought I had 70 points, but all of a sudden an assist was missing, and I only had 69. So I'm like, I'm wondering if there was a little bit of.
We were thinking that same thing. I remember even having a chat with Lanks, and Lanks was so unassuming, and he didn't care about that stuff. That honestly, without it didn't need to be dissected. He was just like, "Oh, think about it, Noof. Like, we go on those road trips. Some of them don't even have videos. Like, imagine how many assists I got that I didn't really get." He didn't try to get, but if I'm out there with Lanks and Mark Hurley scores, Hurley from Langkow and Ryan, I'm sure that happened 10 times the year at least, right?
Right.
Back then, when it just wasn't all analyzed on video. Right?
Correct.
But anyway, you brought up, last thing I'll say, it's just wild talking to you. Talk to you all day. Ryan Huska. So when I came home at the end of those years, again, I'm the only Newfoundlander to ever play in the Western League. So I was like a spokesman. So I would come back here and everybody from I'd run into Dan Cleary and Harold Drukin, guys that would end up becoming NHL, but they were in different leagues and on and on. Those are the guys you know about. But, a lot of my friends played in the O and the Q and college and talking. And before I knew who would end up being, I really thought Ryan Huska was the best two-way player I'd ever come across. Like if he wanted, and I said it's just lucky that he's following Lanks around because I'm a little bit, but the odd game that, he was checking me or us or whatever, I just found him. He just worked like a dog at both ends, and no one really spoke about that much then, especially when scoring was such a thing and still is. But I think now you would get a little bit more credit defensively. Mm-hmm. I just thought he was unbelievable. And to finish that, the two players that I thought were the most underrated in my whole time. Now, the first guy, Brandon Smith, played for Portland. He was only there 93, 94, our first year. Yep. But I thought he was just a remarkable defenseman that never really – I think they both played a little bit in the NHL. But do you have anybody like that from the Western League that you think was like majorly underrated?
Oh man, you're making me think now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, one that I played with actually was Bob Motti. He kind of got
two-way guy, another two-way gentleman. Yeah,
a Cranbrook boy, one of my best friends growing up. He was my roommate, but Bob just a super. Like because he was on that line with Dominic Kelly and McGill. The guy had 100 and some points in his last year, and then he just no one ever kind of gave him a shot. He was a great player. I think he wound up in the Rangers. I think he wound up with the Rangers, and they had so much depth. It was like, oh no, worst team to get. You couldn't get drafted to a worse team. They weren't really that defensive-minded checking guy, third line, checking line type of player, but he could put the puck in the net. He could skate really well. He wasn't the most physical guy, but for me, I thought he was a phenomenal player my whole life, and I really thought he was gonna make the next jump.
He was he was like Huska 2.0, like exactly. Yeah. I remember him being good in both ends. And is Huska from Cranbrook as well?
Oddly enough, I believe he was born in Cranbrook, but grew up in Trail. I think there was right
there,
there's it's like right there, 3 miles, up the road, over the pass. But yeah, Husk was that guy in the dressing room that really I think was You know why he's a coach. Like right now, you can see it from back then. He was a guy that if you were having a little homesickness, any of that stuff, you didn't have to tell him. He already knew. He was coming up to you, asking you over for dinner. You want to go to a movie tonight? He was just probably one of the best teammates I ever had. He was a phenomenal guy. He still is. I mean, I wish him the best of luck in Calgary. And if those guys in Calgary could work as hard as that freaking guy,
Yeah.
you're gonna have success.
That's an absolutely great way to end it because I got to take off. I said 25 minutes.
Right,
We've been on here 40. It's great talking to you. I could do this all the time. You should
got
be
it, man.
podcasting if you're not.
Well, let's come down and we'll get on a couple more.
Well,
Maybe.
yeah, I mean, I really think you've got the gift of gab. You've got unbelievable stories, and it's nice to have you on again. Do you have anything to promote or talk about before I take off?
Not really. It's Thanksgiving down here. Happy Thanksgiving to all the Americans down here, to my Texas Tiger guys, to you, and to the Sudbury Blueberry Bulldogs.
Bulldogs. Well, you know what? Thanks for watching. And no, we really do. My dad played. My dad's, by the way, just our fathers have a lot in common. My dad wore number 18, and he went 44 in the 1972 draft. I think your dad went 30 or 32, something like that.
Yeah.
And we still, for that reason, we celebrate the American Thanksgiving. I graduated in Tri-Cities, man. Like the United States are a big part of why we are where we are today. And my dad ended up getting a college degree, all on the Minnesota Fighting Saints, and we still got great friends down there. He played in Kalamazoo, where I was nearly born.
Yeah.
The first few years of my life. I know you were there. But anyway, so happy Thanksgiving to you, my friend. Thanks for doing this.
Brother.
And we'll talk to you real soon.
You got it, buddy. See you,
folks. If you're downtown St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and you want to grab a beer, you want to go to George Street, why not check out the Bull and Barrel? Why not check out Trinity Pub, the Rob Roy Confusion, the Martini Bar, and of course, Greensleeves. If you're going to have a bite to eat, I like to go to Blue on Water, the Merchant Tavern, and of course, Wedgwood Cafe, who also do catering. See Peter Wedgwood, Wedgwood Cafe on Elizabeth Avenue. Strength and balance for the body and mind. Ryan Power Conditioning. Ex-pro hockey player. He trains Alex Newhook. He trains Abik Newhook. Maggie Connors, and then some. Old, young, fit, fat, whatever it is, get to Ryan Power. He will help you out. Pitbull Pain Relief, the pain sticks that just don't quit. Go to pitbullpainrelief.com, see what all the fuss is about. There's 2 locations of Mr. Lube here in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. One is on Torbay Road. One is on Kenmount Road. Check it out. Live, laugh, lube. Of course, True Hockey. Take what's yours. Lastly, I love my Mugsy jeans. They're so comfortable. They're so stretchy. God love my Mugsy jeans. I'll be back in just a couple of days with more Tales with TR. Thank you to Brad Lukowich. Thank you to you guys for listening. Catch you guys on the rebound.